Hey everybody, Happy New Year. I can't believe it's 2022 and we are back with the Dawn of Drones podcast. I am Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. We're so happy to be working with DroneLife again this year on this podcast. And what a year it's going to be. We are kicking off this month of Tech Showcase with none other than CEO Cameron Chell from Draganfly. I mean, who better to talk about a technology showcase than Draganfly? Seriously. Everybody, by the way, I just want to remind you, this is live. So if you've got comments, if you've got questions, of course, if you've got positive encouragement, we want to see that. Drop it in the chat and we'll chat you guys up as well. So we're going to go ahead and get rolling. And by the way, just two quick things. Last year, we ended with such a bang, by the way. If you haven't seen our last episode with Kevin, the drone guy Morris from the FAA, and Miss Hui Tran from NASA's, the director of aeronautics from NASA's Ames Research Center, we're breaking records. And speaking of breaking records, we broke records with Cam last week on our Clubhouse. If you guys are not in Clubhouse on the Drone Law Connections, you need to be. And what Cam and I were just talking, what we're not going to do is repeat a lot of what we did there. So that's available for replay. Go into Clubhouse, Drone Law Connections, check it out. We're going to jump in and really continue the conversation, Cam. So first of all, welcome. So great to see you.
Wow, it's so great to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to work with you. And I've been a big fan for a long time and follow your really important work in the space for everybody. So thanks for having us, frankly.
Well, gosh, you talk about important work. And when I went back through the notes, because, you know, just behind the scenes peek here, everybody, behind the curtain, you know, I do a script and, you know, kind of try to figure out what we're going to talk about. Your team filled in so much information. I know we're still not going to be able to cover it. But what I want to do, Cam, since, by the way, I'm live in Las Vegas, and I know you're coming here soon for Edge 2022. For those that don't know what that is, it's kind of the government version of CES. It's the government technology portion. And Saturday is going to be called the Dawn of Drones. And I'm emceeing, and Cam is going to be demoing the Draganfly technology on Lady Gaga's stage at the park, at the MGM Park Dolby Theater. So, woo! I mean, what a way to kick off the year. So, Viva Las Vegas. But let's talk about what's happening. Today is Wednesday. Oh my gosh, tonight. So tonight is the DRL, the Drone Racing League World Championship. And Draganfly is a huge part of this. So Cam, why don't you tell us how you got involved with DRL and this World Championship?
Yeah, so again, first and foremost, thanks so much for having us and for the great work that you've done and the service you've given the country over your career. DRL is an amazing organization. These folks are really committed to drones and drone life and the possibilities of drones and what they mean for society and humanity as a whole. And so they have that ethos, and that's a really big part of the ethos inside of Draganfly. One of the other reasons we really like DRL is because when you set up a drone racing, not just a league, but an actual course and site, it's so much more than drones. It's an entire platform. It's an entire system. Everything from communications to logistics to repair to people engaging with drones. Like it covers every aspect that a drone has to encounter in the real world, actually is encountered in that entire production. So that the research that, and I don't think a lot of people really understand that, Drone Racing League, as much as it's a racing league, they're a tech company. They have leading edge tech that manages their drones, races their drones. Like it is, they do cutting edge work in order to have the performance that they have and stream it the way that they stream it. And so it's that type of tech focus that also really attracted us to them. So we've set up the DRL Draganfly lab to really take the commercial initiatives that we have and put them into this incredible test environment and to build them out technically with DRL so that when we take them out to market, we've already got incredible, not just use cases, but proven data that will help us commercialize these products. So, I mean, that's really the biggest reason that we're involved with them is to build incredible product for our customers.
Well, I'll tell you, you're doing things with artificial intelligence, and again, once again, I know people can't continue dialing in. People are blowing up the chat, by the way, here, Cam. If you didn't notice, we've got, I'm probably going to butcher this name, Zweni Magnasana is tuned in, and Anand Maharaj and Olivier Defawe. And Before You Go is out there again. Before You Go has been on here a couple times, so appreciate those fans, and thanks for dialing in, and Happy New Year back to you. Um, you've been tinkering with artificial intelligence, and I say tinkering really before anybody was thinking about it. Like, so, right, I spent, you mentioned my military service,
Yeah.
28 years, and really within the last, handful of years, you start hearing about AI and, the policy behind AI, and we need AI involved in our networked capabilities, et cetera. But my recollection of our conversation on Clubhouse, which again, everybody go back and watch, is that it was about 2008 when you were looking at AI. And that's when you started thinking, hey, let's marry this up potentially with drones. Without getting too deeply into that story, because I do want people to go back and listen to it, just tell us that initial thinking, how it's evolved, and specifically today, what your AI is that you're using with DRL that they will be using in the championship tonight.
Yeah, so AI is a big category, and it means a lot of
Huge.
things. Where we have a particular expertise or capability is really in the machine vision portion of AI, which in itself is a massive category
Yeah.
on its own. I was lucky enough to actually start, as you call it, tinkering with machine vision back in 1998 when we were building machine vision. They weren't even called algorithms. They're really kind of sets, if you will, in order to look at parts coming down manufacturing lines. I had also had the great pleasure of working with a company called Slice, where we were actually, and Walmart implemented the system, and so did Neiman Marcus and a number of other retailers, where you simply take a picture of anything on their app, and it will find that or a similar product in their inventory, and you can purchase it in one click. So there's always been a fascination with machine vision and its capability. As we've been building out drones, since again the late 90s, that the early part of the 2000s was still really all about the hardware and the engineering. And then as we moved into the mid 2000s, it really became more and more about the software and the applications. And so we were building software and applications. And we have a great drone branch. We have good engineering, good manufacturing. But at the end of the day, it's super cool. But what does the drone do? And so the capability really relied in what was the software able to do. So whether it was survey software or accident reconstruction software or whatever the case is. And today where that has migrated to is that the drone industry really is growing exponentially, but in two particular categories. One is in anything to do with data and anything to do with delivery. And both of those things require quite frankly, deep insights and or autonomous operation. And both of those require AI. So that's, I would like to say, hey, we're trying to lead the pack by saying, hey, we're going to be AI and have a better product or better services because of AI. The reality is it's our customers that are driving us there. So a customer comes to us with a use case and it might be right on the edge of like, it doesn't quite work because you need a lot of human intervention or the costs are too high or whatever the case is. But if you had AI that could, garner some insights or provide some additional machine vision help in terms of the piloting or the data that you're collecting, then all of a sudden the ROI goes over the top and it becomes really useful for that customer. So the long and the short of it is that all of our AI has really been driven by customer demands or customer desires. And we've been building, to those and put an AI bench in place since about 2008 specifically, and really have come up with our first, I would call it truly robust commercial AI system that operates with our drones or any other drone, but with many more that are coming behind it. It will be, in my opinion, the leading, technology is probably the wrong word, but the leading piece of work that you need to be able to do in order to fulfill customer requirements in the very near future.
Well, we're going to get into all these different customers and all these different use cases where your drones, your AI is being applied. But let's talk about very specifically DRL. So you're you've incorporated not only AI, but also biometrics into the process. Let's just say that. So can you explain, like, when people go tonight? By the way, I am going. I'm so excited to see this.
I
I
am
was at
so
the.
disappointed I'm not going to be there tonight.
I know.
I wish all the racers best luck. DRL, I know they're going to crush it on the races and the production side, and just circumstances and COVID and travel and borders and that kind of stuff. I can't get there till Friday, but I know it's going to be amazing. And we have lots of people there, and it's going to be so exciting.
Well, it will be. And I was at dinner last night with a group of folks from the Government Business Executive Forum, and they're staying at the MGM Park, some of them. And they were out the window. They took some pictures because there was some practice runs, I guess, yesterday or the night before. And they were so excited. They're like, oh my gosh, we have to go to this now. But so, I'm going, they're going, lots of people are going, and millions of people are going to be watching this thing live. What can we expect, Cam? How is Draganfly embedded into now this DRL process for these World Championships?
Yeah, so the AI specific, maybe I'll talk, thanks for the opportunity. I'll talk a little bit about the AI and the specific product that we're implementing here. And then maybe I'll just give a little background of how that came to be and why it's so important for drones. So okay. What you'll be able to see is these racers, as they're going through the course, their biometrics are being displayed. So their heart rate, their respiratory rate, their blood oxygen levels, their heart rate variability. These are all things that are indicators as to how they're racing, how they're feeling, what they're doing. And what's interesting is it's incredible data to see. Like, if you can imagine watching a drone racer or an athlete in action and seeing what their biometrics are doing live, it's like a whole other aspect of the entertainment. And even interestingly enough, the betting lines on this are now taking a look at it and going, hey, wait a minute, is this important wagering data even? So it's interesting what comes out of it that you never expect. And so, but all of this information is being gathered simply from a camera. There are no monitors, there's no pads, there's nothing hooked up to the racers. It is just a regular camera. In fact, we could do it on a laptop camera, via telemedicine or anything like that, where literally you just sit in front of the camera and the AI can tell you your heart rate, your respiratory rate, your blood oxygen level, your heart rate variability, and it'll tell you if you've got conjunctivitis, which is pink eye, and in fact it goes on from there. It's even to the point now
where it's starting. A camera?
Just from a camera, just from right here. If we were sitting on this camera right now, and you were my doctor or I was your doctor, you would be able to see what my heart rate's doing right now. You'd see my blood pressure. You'd see my.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah. So we talked about this, but because I'm a lawyer, I have to bring it up again. And I know this is an important issue for a lot of people, Cam. So to dispel any illusions or any concerns, when you think about the biometrics and reading heart rates of people and their respiratory rates or determining if they have pink eye, for goodness sakes, how does that work with DRL vis-a-vis privacy and those drone pilots?
Yeah. So first of all, overall in our society today, we have a very good privacy construct. So none of this can happen without consent. There are great privacy laws and platforms out there that protect people's rights, and this is not public data that's available. So obviously, these racers, as part of their league contract and such, are making this information available to people out there. And so if this was a telemedicine session right now, I'd obviously have given consent to you as my doctor, per se, in order to, read my vital signs or to have that as information, all protected, by HIPAA and, proper encryption and everything else around that. So again, none of this can work outside of the privacy laws that we have in place today, which are very appropriate.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's so much to talk about, Cam. And by the way, fun fact, we just broke our record for the number of live viewers.
Congratulations.
So what a way to kick off the year, my friend. What I wanted to ask you, when you're doing the drone racing World Championships tonight, you're not just involved in the biometrics and that part of the race. You're also doing some drone disinfecting beforehand. So tell us, so many lines of effort. When you think about technology showcase, you're showcasing it all. So tell us about your drone disinfecting line of effort at Draganfly.
Yeah, so a big part of Draganfly's history is all about public safety. And so one of the things that came about as the pandemic unfolded was the ability to get mass disinfection happen and getting people either back into schools or back into stadiums or back into manufacturing plants or things like that. And so, certainly you can go around with a spray bottle and, disinfect and things like that. Well, there's two challenges with that. First of all, you can't get great data on uniform disinfecting, where it landed, how long it lasted, how effective was it. But because of the cameras and the sensors that we have on drones, we can not only apply evenly, but we can actually show it's infrared type camera images of where it was all spread, where people have been touching the most. Is it still working? Is it lasting? Incredible data, so that you can actually target where potential super spreader locations are in a particular venue, for example. Now, the other aspect of this, and this is, again, I think it's part of Draganfly's ethos, is you can put a disinfectant down, but it disinfects what's there. But if somebody else comes along and touches that surface and they happen to have a pathogen on them, well, that surface is now not disinfected. So really you've disinfected it, but you haven't protected anybody. So we worked very hard with an organization to create a product which we call VeriGuard. And VeriGuard is a totally organic algae-based product that not only disinfects everything, but also kills all pathogens for up to 24 hours. Actually, I think it goes well beyond that, but kills pathogens for up to 24 hours on there. So if you do a stadium or a school classroom or the DRL racing zone, you're walking into something that's just not disinfected, but it's clean for the next 24 hours. Even if you bring a pathogen into that surface. And that's it. So again, that was driven by customers. So we had customer demand saying, hey, we need to get this place disinfected because we got a bunch of people coming in. We don't want to have liability. And as we talked through that use case, we're like, are we going to disinfect it at halftime too? Are we going to disinfect it like at the quarter time? Or are we going to have everybody get out of the seats? And like, how are we going to keep this facility safe? And it was because of that type of like customer inquiry and push that we developed this product. And I think that's the difference between what we do when we focus on customers. So when you go to DRL tonight, you're going to be walking into an environment that's just not disinfected, but you're safe in that environment for up to 24 hours.
Well, that makes me feel secure because I think what we're seeing, at least as of yesterday, people are afraid to come to Vegas. We had some weather and everything, but with Omicron right now. Some people have opted out. A lot of big companies have pulled out of CES, which is unfortunate. But it's great to know that when I go out to DRL, that it's going to be safe. And I know that you've also partnered with my good friend Tony Drummond at Global
Amazing
Group on that. And I know the both of you are also going to be disinfecting the Dolby Theater before I get in there on Saturday and up on that stage. So really excited that you all have kind of figured out that partnership, and I think that's spectacular. Cam, you mentioned data a number of times here, and data really is king when you think about drones, because you and I've talked about this. Drones are basically a tool. It's that information and the analytics and what you do with it and how you use it. So jumping back to the biometrics that you're going to be using tonight in the World Drone Racing Championship, what kind of data are you hoping to obtain, and for what purpose exactly? Like, what's the goal here?
Yeah, so I like to, in very general terms, I like to break data up, just for my pea brain, I like to break data up into real-time data and then analytical data that you can take a look at afterward and improve upon or make decisions on. But then there's also real-time data. So if we take a look at that construct, even for tonight, it would look something like this. Basically, there's real-time data that's going to serve a couple of purposes. First of all, it's entertainment purposes. It's going to be really interesting to see how the champion's heart rate is reacting compared to the person that came in last, or or heart rate's going up around a particular gate, or they at the finish line, or the beginning, or the after, or all that type of that's just good entertainment value and really interesting.
And especially since, like, in my house, I've got some men children, we always debate, are they sports? Are they athletes? And, if the heart rate is going up and, something similar to what you would see, depending on what it is, I mean, that could help inform that debate. I
would suggest, without saying anything that I can't, I would suggest that you are going to see some esport leagues utilizing this type of technology, right? for a number of reasons. One, it's entertaining, and two, it validates that esport is sport. You are going through emotional highs, physical highs, physiological challenges. You're experiencing all the things when you're in an esport environment. You're experiencing all those physical things. So listen, if somebody can argue that that a golfer is an athlete, right, or if somebody on a horse is an athlete when the horse is doing most of the work, which I think they are, they are athletes, then I think you can make a pretty solid argument around esport. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, a whole other line.
Yeah. But so there's that entertainment value. Now there's also practical real-time value. Like if, for example, is it a safety issue? Are we seeing heart rates that are too high? Are we seeing something that's indicative that should be a warning sign for that athlete? The other real-time data is things like, sports wagering data. Is this important data to have for sports wagering? And more use cases and applications will come out in that real-time sense of things. In terms of analytical data, will that racer post-race go and look at it and say, hey, wait a minute, these are the areas where if I compare, to all the other racers in there where they were performing better and I was performing worse, what was my physiological state? And what can I do to change it to improve better around that gate or improve my overall performance? DRL might look at it in terms of course setup. Do we want to have 7 or 8 gates where we drive heart rates up the super high, or only 3 gates? Is that going to make the race better? Is that going to make the athletes perform at different levels or in different ways? Does it change the type of recruiting we do in terms of the type of people that come in to become racers in the league? It just goes on. Once you have the data, you start to realize all the particular uses of it. So if you can afford me a minute, I'd like to kind of relate this back to the real world, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. What are the commercial applications? What are the public safety applications? What are the societal applications beyond drone racing?
So in terms of this specific type of this very specific technology and machine vision, is imagine, if you will, a drone being the first responder into a location where you may have a 911 call. The drone is the first responder there, and it gets there before the physical officers or paramedics or whatever do. They can be looking at the state of the crowd. Who's got higher heart rates? Is the victim in shock? If it's a domestic violence situation? Who's in a how serious is the situation? That's one potential use case. If we look at things like disaster relief. Again, same thing. The drones are getting there before the trucks are rolling in. The drones are obviously providing situational awareness, what roads are open, what towers are down, whatever the case is. They're providing communication. And they're also being able to provide triage information back to those trucks that are rolling. Hey, here's a group of survivors. We've got 2 of them in shock over here. We've got 3 that are, potentially, life-threatening. We need to get over here first as opposed to there. It gives them that advanced information.
When you think about the need for triage, and also just from that officer safety standpoint, from all the different scenarios you just gave, because if something collapsed and they're looking for people, that's a dangerous situation for officers, for people to be in. I could also see this being a spectacular battlefield application.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Just before we touch base on that, I do want to touch base on relief agencies, because I think relief agencies who have shown great interest in this, there's a big application. So if you can imagine, real case scenario, Ebola vaccines being delivered into a village. Okay. Instead of immediately putting your relief workers or your aid workers in harm's way by delivering that equipment in there, can you put a drone up to take a look at the population health, right? Do we have infectious conditions? Because if you've got high heart rates and low SpO2s, you've got a respiratory infectious condition going on, in there. No question about it. Whether they have fevers or infrared, you're getting that from infrared or whatever the case is, thermal. That can be not necessarily indicative, but if you've got high heart rate, low SpO2, you've got infectious conditions in there. So you may decide to fly those vaccines in by drone. Right, or the relief workers that you're going to put in there to do that, you may have a different decision about how you're, the PPE that you're using, or who's actually going in, or how many people you're going to be putting in. The people in the village, that are coming out to receive those vaccines, as they're coming out, you can actually take their health condition, as they're coming out, to see if any of them have potential infectious conditions. And these are real world applications that can give you real-time data that can help you do better decisions, on the spot. In terms of battlefield applications, yeah, it's an unfortunate part of our world, but whether it's anything from, checking on the health of your combatants or your aid workers or your support staff, whatever, in real-time situations, understanding, what their physiology is, whether you're looking at potential enemy combatants and saying, hey, what's the state of their camp, or what's the state of their condition as they're approaching battlefield situations, whether it's things as, I hate to say it, but, sniper verification. And that's a real world application of this technology installed on a scope. So, the list goes on and on and on. And I mean, we obviously like to focus on public safety and relief work, but the very real, but that's all part of public safety and relief. If you can monitor the safety of your combatants, right, and provide them better information, that's a pretty important role for this type of technology.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk more about public safety, because you've been working with a lot of different public safety agencies in the various sheriff offices across the United States, and you have a big line of effort in Texas as well. So tell us about what you're doing there.
Yeah, so we're working specifically with a company called Cold Chain Delivery Systems, which is a sub of Cold Chain Technologies, which is one of the largest vaccine and medical suppliers to the U.S. government. In fact, they provide all the COVID vaccines into the state of Texas, the city of Chicago, and various other places as well. So they're working with Texas EMS to actually stand up an emergency response system utilizing drones, with three primary use cases. One being response to 911 calls, which there's been some great data out there in the world showing that the drone can get there first, right, and determine, as vehicles are running to that location, how serious is it, or is it a false alarm? Because the vast majority of 911 is actually false. So you're saving resources by getting them turned around quicker. The second is critical accident care or critical situation care. So yeah, it might be EpiPen delivery, it might be paddle delivery, AED delivery, it may be blood delivery, it may be getting to an accident scene quicker to take vital signs and relay that information back to the trucks or the vehicles that are running in. And then the third is actually disaster response. So we may have a situation where there's people, there's a big freeze in Texas, people can't get in through roads, or there's a hurricane, or there's floods, and you've got to get either equipment into those locations. You can use the drones to get equipment in, whether it's water and blankets and painkillers, and at the same time actually be taking the vital signs of those individuals, providing logistics and situational awareness back to the folks that are actually boots on the ground, or trucks that are rolling. And so, our view is that, over the next 3 to 5 years, this will be significant budget in terms of emergency response organizations, and governments are looking to fund this because it reduces man hours, it increases response, or it reduces response time, excuse me, and so we think drones are going to be a key part of what happens with emergency medical systems. We've flown over 300 daytime flight tests with EMS. We've flown 100 nighttime tests in Texas with EMS, and the results and the data we're getting is just absolutely spectacular. So I think over the course of the next year to 18 months, we'll have a strong case for this to start to flow actually into the budgets of state organizations to start funding drone use. Of course, it's all dependent on regulations. So we're working hand in hand with the FAA, providing them all of the test results that we have so that collectively we can come up with something that's safe and productive.
Well, that's awesome. And I don't know if you're working with Ernest Huffman and the North Central Texas Council of Governments down there, but if you're not, I'm happy to introduce you. He was on the podcast back in November for Innovation Month. Yeah, Ernest and what they're doing with the COG is amazing. So, and you also, as part of this delivery system that you've created, Cam, don't you have an innovative temperature managed payload box that helps transport these things that you're delivering?
Yeah, Don, it's another great example. So it's one thing to have the drone, right? And there's a lot of organizations that can build great airframes and provide great pilots and do training and such. But really what the customer needs is they need a temperature control box that doesn't use up battery life. So we've got a patented temperature control box that actually the payload sits on top of the drone as opposed to underneath the drone. And again, we learned that from experience. I've
never seen that.
Yeah, it's, and it just makes, as soon as you say it, it's like, well, of course. but we would never have thought of it unless we were out doing the tests in the field with the customers, going like, you know, the drone is heavy. Can we pick it up? Do we damage it if we tip it? What if we can't get underneath the blades? You know, what if it's on an angle? But, you know, so this thing comes into location and opens up and you've got access to everything. Now, the actual temperature control box is incredible materials and using very highly specialized organic oils that hold temperature better than ice or water, or and can heat up and cool down. So that you send these things out, whether you're keeping blood at a particular temperature or vaccines at a particular temperature, and you're not using a battery. Like, again, that type of, like, those are the innovations I think that help make what we do different, as opposed to just providing a great drone. We hopefully are trying and working hard to provide great solutions.
And speaking of working hard, I mean, you're working with so many different, let's just call them stakeholders. So we talked about the Drone Racing League and kind of that recreational crowd. And I know there's more with robotics that you're involved in. We're not going to get through like all the things you're doing. And then, of course, public safety and EMS and all that. You're working with universities as well. So let's talk about that, because, you know, creating that workforce of tomorrow, well, really of today, and the ones that, of course, that will take us into tomorrow is so hugely important. And you've been working with Alabama State University, I believe, and Talladega College. So can you tell us a little bit about your line of efforts there and what you've been doing?
Yeah, so first and foremost on this, Alabama State University, an incredible university, headed up by Dr. Ross, who truly is a visionary. He had, if I'm not mistaken, the lowest, if not the lowest COVID infection rate, and still, you know, right from the beginning of the pandemic, right through to today. He was so incredibly proactive in terms of testing on his campuses and installing this type of technology, so people can walk up to kiosks and do a self-check to see if they've got an infectious condition, and just the way they actually were able to bring students back to school before anybody else, and really built a culture of safety around the pandemic. You know, and so out of that, you know, we grew a very strong relationship, and they started taking a look at the role of drones, you know, going forward, and also then took a look at the fact that literally in the next couple of few years, you know, there's estimates, probably the medium estimate is 100,000 drone pilots are going to be required, right? And you know, when you think about a drone pilot, people, oh, I'm going to get up there, I'm going to fly this drone. Well, you know, flying a drone to do a pipeline inspection, right, is very different than flying a drone if you're in an emergency response situation. I mean, you know this from being in the Air Force, right? Like, it's highly, first of all, you need to be highly trained, you need to be highly skilled, and then you need to be highly specialized to be effective.
Well, and then add, like you said, the pipeline, you know, add beyond visual line of sight. Now you're talking a whole different skill set than just having that visual line, right?
Listen, there are no, you know, you think about an airline pilot or a recreational pilot, there's no dumb pilots out there. You have to be technically competent and you have to be on your game to fly. And all of those same three-dimensional, you know, physics apply to what you're doing with the drone. So it's one thing to, you know, to have a you know, a $600 little drone flying around, and you think, you know, you're taking cute pictures of the family or the soccer game or something, but that's very different than being in high winds or, you know, critical infrastructure situations or life's on the line or whatever the case may be. So these are really important, highly skilled jobs that aren't going to be filled unless we are proactively doing it. So Dr. Ross, with his various departments there, you know, took a proactive approach, and we've now implemented a training system at a university level to train pilots to come out with not just, you know, a Part 107 license, but with a certification and eventually a degree that will give them, you know, not just the skills and the knowledge in specific areas, but also the physics and the ability to think forward and the engineering around what needs to be done in order to be an incredible drone solution. And they've had very robust sign up for it. And so we're you know, and further that, we're also working with DRL and WAZED, Steve Wozniak's STEM education program in elementary and mid and high schools to educate and train students on drone operations and drone physics and drone engineering. And so, you know, hopefully we're taking a little bit of a playbook out of what Mr. Wozniak and Steve Jobs did with Apple in terms of implementing it into the school system and getting kids familiar with not just the skill, but also the brand.
Well, it's really brilliant, because you got to get them early, and it's not just the kids, it's the parents too. You know, we were talking to Kyle Sanders from US Drone Soccer recently. And, you know, I was there this summer when they did the Rocky Mountain State Games. And it wasn't just the kids. You had to see the parent, like, because, you know, mom and dad came, grandparents came. And it was really, when we talk about public perception of drones, and we talk about it all the time, right? That is so huge to move this technology forward. The fact that now mom and dad and all these generations were watching like little Johnny or little Judy playing drone soccer and thinking drones were awesome, that's huge. Just little steps like that, getting them into the classrooms, Cam, like what you're doing, so important, absolutely important. And I know you're working with ROTC and others as well. Man, the list goes on and on. Mining, energy, I mean, robotics. We only have a couple minutes left, so here's what I'm going to do, Cam, because there is so much we could cover. I want to let you tell us what you want us to know about what Draganfly, what's next for Draganfly, and what we should, you know, expect to see in 2022.
I think the most important, well, and thanks for the opportunity. You know, I think what's most important for Draganfly, for our employees, our shareholders, and in particular our customers, is to really build a trusted organization. So everything that we're doing today is really focused on what can we do for the customer. So, you know, I get the question a lot, like, how do you guys have so much on the go? Well, the reason is because we have so many customers, and those customers have requirements. And so we're building to those customers' requirements. That's how we came up with, you know, Vital Intelligence, the AI-based technology that can read vital signs. That's how we came up with, you know, boxes that can deliver medical equipment or medical supplies in a way without using battery life. And every initiative that we have, I can say with confidence, is because of what our customers are asking us to do. We're somewhat system agnostic. We don't have a requirement to have to be, you know, everything that we build, whether it's our sensors, our AI, our software, our solutions, you know, they're designed to work obviously on Draganfly drones and systems that we build, but they can work on other systems as well. I think, you know, it's if there was 25 Draganflies out there right now, those 25 companies would not meet the demand of the market that's upon us now and coming. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us in the industry, and I think somewhat maybe Draganfly because of, you know, how old and long we've been around, you know, to help lead that in terms of like building a whole ecosystem. I don't believe that our infrastructure can be maintained, whether it's from a workforce, whether it's from just the amount of infrastructure that we've got out there that's got to get repaired. How do we keep our costs down? How do we do preventative maintenance? You know, how do we make companies like forestry companies more efficient environmentally, to do disease detection ahead of time, you know, to count their inventory yields, to watch the water count? Drones there's nothing collects data better than a drone. And so when we apply all of these processes and solutions into these industries, you know, what we're doing isn't for the drone industry, it's really for all of society. And it sounds like a big statement, but when you think about in 2013 that a drone saved the human life, right? How many more lives are going to be saved because of this technology? And it's about that total solution. And so Draganfly, beyond more than anything, is committed to bringing those total solutions together. So we're going to continue to develop tech. We're going to continue to work hard with customers. We may do the right acquisitions with great companies that can help build this ecosystem out for everybody. But we're lucky to be here, and we don't want to take it for granted. And we value our customers and the education they're giving us.
Well, I'll tell you, you just mentioned something, and most people out there, unless they were on Clubhouse, have no idea what you're talking about. So Cam just mentioned in 2013, the search and rescue operation. It was up in Canada. It was the very first one. It was with the Draganfly drone, involving the Canadian Mounted Police, right? And a horrific snowstorm where there was an individual missing. I was telling this story last night over dinner, Cam, with my Women in Drones colleagues, because it was just such an amazing story. And how you put thermal sensors on that camera and found that man in 20 minutes, where he may very well have not made it through the night. Helicopters couldn't work in the situation. The conditions were too bad. And that drone is in the Smithsonian, right?
It is. That drone's on permanent display in the Smithsonian, credited being the first drone that saved a human life. Well documented. There's no question that individual would have passed away. They were unconscious. They had a head injury. They were going into hypothermia, and of course, it was the amazing work of the search and rescue team and the foresight on their part to be able to implement this that made it happen. But it's a great example and just the beginning of what will now continue to happen in the role of drones for all of us in society.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we've got a question here from the audience, Cam, so I'd love to give this one to you. And I believe it's from Hassan Abu Bakr Muhammad. He says, do you have precision agricultural drones for multispectral and thermal imagery?
Yeah, we do, as a matter of fact. And in fact, our original manufacturing plant was, we're a US-based company, but our original manufacturing plant was in a place called Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, which is an agricultural center and does a lot of work with the University of Saskatchewan there, which is known for its agricultural department. And so we, in fact, the first hyperspectral camera that flew on a drone, I hate to sound like I'm boasting here, but was on a Draganfly drone. And in fact, they're now owned by one of our competitors, but we're still one of the largest implementers of that hyperspectral work. And so, whether it's precision agriculture, we've done everything as crazy as count flies on the back of cows' backs and hind ends, because it's indicative of methane gas out there. It's indicative of there's just amazing data that comes out of it. We use hyperspectral cameras also with our forestry clients. So we'll fly LiDAR missions, to give inventory counts. We'll use hyperspectral cameras to do vegetation and water analysis and disease detection. And really, the sensors, there's really three components. There's the airframe, there's the sensor, right? And then there's the data. And being able to combine all three of those things is just going to start bringing results to all kinds of industries that we never thought possible.
Well, the list goes on, and we just have a couple minutes left. So what I want to do, because people are asking questions, we've got a super active audience today. By the way, we've got the NT4 show saying great live show, thank you, and all kinds of folks out there saying hello. Alay Guerrero from DPRO. So how can people get in touch with you, Cam? How can they learn more about Draganfly after the show is over?
Yeah, so draganfly.com. So it's DRAGAN fly.com. It's Dragon with an A. And that's because our original founder, Zen and Dragon, that was his name. If you just go to info@draganfly.com, that gets to me. You can also go to cameron.chell@draganfly.com, email me, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quick as I can. I am incredibly passionate about engaging with customers and with shareholders and stakeholders, and it's where all of our ideas come from. Like we're not necessarily great idea people, but we're good at implementing and organizing and sticking with things until they become commercial. So we really appreciate the support out there, and would love to hear from anybody if they've got time.
Well, and you're very active on social media, on LinkedIn, Twitter, you've got, right, Instagram and all of it. So, and obviously now you're on Clubhouse too. So hopefully
thanks to you. Thank you.
Yeah. Join us again. Very fun. And thank you very much, Cam and Draganfly, for sponsoring this month of Technology Showcase. So we really appreciate it. And, we couldn't do what we do in the way we do it without folks like you willing to help us. So thank you so much for that as well.
Yeah, well, candidly, Dawn, we couldn't do what we do if it weren't for folks like you, and we're honored to sponsor this, and we'll sponsor any month you want, and we don't need to be on the show. We just think what you do for the industry and all aspects of the industry is incredibly important, and you're so value add and everything. It's not surprising me that you're breaking records on a continuous basis. I'm sure that's going to continue.
Well, that's very kind. And I'll tell you what, Cam, here's the deal. I want to tell your story. For those, once again, that don't know Cam's background, you need to, if you want to know about resilience, you need to listen to the Clubhouse. You need to dig a little bit deeper into his background, because he's got this amazing and inspirational story, personally and professionally. And just the fact that you've been a serial entrepreneur since the age of 14, and kind of the journey that you've been through and where you are today. And like I said, I mean, we haven't even got through a third of the notes that I have here to cover. about all of the things that you and Draganfly and your team are doing. So I'm looking forward to continuing to tell that story, and look forward to an article coming out soon. Hint, hint. I'll tell you later on social, so follow me there too. But we are at time, and that's it. 30 seconds, Cam. What's your elevator speech? What do you got?
Well, first of all, we're grateful to be here and thankful to be in this industry. I think Draganfly as an organization is committed to its customers. I think we have a fantastic team. We have a great engineering bench. We have an incredible board of directors, which includes, God, I can't even get into it, just people that we don't really even deserve to get to work with, yourself included. We have technology, and we have proven that we can commercialize that technology. And we got traction. We've got a couple 100+ customers, and it's growing every month. And we're committed to work for them, and we just appreciate this opportunity and everybody that's been on the show today. Thank you so much, Don.
Well, I can't wait to see what comes next for Draganfly. I can't wait to meet you in person in a couple days here in Vegas.
Couple days, yeah.
I'm so excited to see the drones flying around Lady Gaga's stage. I mean, for me, this is like bucket list stuff, seriously. Everybody, by the way, speaking of Clubhouse, tomorrow at our normal time, which is 11 a.m. Mountain, 1 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have our next guest on, Miss Savannah Haran. She's with the Phoenix Group out of Chantilly, Virginia. She's their senior robotics engineer. Cam, you were going to want to listen in to Savannah. She's amazing.
I will be there.
At AUVSI Exponential in Atlanta, and she's going to be on the podcast. She's going to be on the podcast next Wednesday and on the Clubhouse tomorrow. But doing amazing things with connectivity. So when you're talking about command and control for the military side and civilian, that's what she's working on. And so I can't wait to pick her brain and learn what she's doing as well. So
yeah, her profile is off the chart. And again, it's another great example of, like, when people think of drones, they think of the airframe. But without the type of communication systems and platforms that she's building, like, the airframe is the airframe. It's cute, it's fun, it's novel. But it's all these other things like her communication types expertise that actually make the drones useful. So I will be definitely listening to that podcast.
Awesome. All right, well, that is all she wrote, everybody. And for the pilots out there, fly safe. Otherwise, have an amazing week. We hope to see you on Clubhouse tomorrow. Definitely same time, same place next week with Savannah on this podcast. And thanks again, Chell, Cam. It was awesome. And I will see you in a couple days.
Yeah, look forward to it. Have a great day.
Right. Out here.